my name is Sophia, and welcome to The Show Must Go On. So today I am back once again for another School Spirits video. Now, I know I'm a little behind because we have seen up to the 4th episode and I'm just now making a video about the 3rd episode. It has just been really hard because they released the first 3 episodes all at once, it made it very difficult to be able to keep up and make videos about all 3 of those in the span of a week because I have classes and work and all this stuff, and you know, these episodes are like an hour long and then it takes me a long time to analyze them and make all my slideshows and everything. So I'm sorry that I'm a little behind, but I'm trying to catch up with it now. So that's why I'm filming this one today. Hopefully the one about the 4th episode today or tomorrow and get it all up before the 5th episode comes out this Wednesday. So yeah, but without further ado, let's talk about Season 3, Episode 3, The Halls Have Eyes. So starting with talking about the plot points, going character by character. So obviously I always start out talking about our girl Maddie. So we can obviously see in this episode she is very protective of Simon. I mean, obviously she's always been, but she does not like that he just keeps, you know, trying to like just do things without really thinking, and you know, he wants to like go into the hole that Mr. Martin went in, but like they don't know, you know, what's down there and all the dangers and everything. So she's very protective of him, which obviously, you know, it's interesting because we've kind of seen, you know, the dynamics of Simon and Maddie kind of like change over time, because obviously the roles used to be reversed and it used to be Simon who, you know, was very like protective of Maddie and trying to figure out stuff for her, and now it's like swapped. So very interesting things happening with that. And then obviously we see like she gets home from, she was talking to all the ghosts in the auto shop like late after school, and then she gets home and her mom, Sandra, is like very mad that she, you know, was out late. And her mom is actually like packing her things and is like, we're gonna leave because I don't like all this bad stuff has been happening to you like at this school, like because she's been spying on Maddie with her texts and stuff, and she could see that Nicole said something about the fake blood being thrown at her and everything. Obviously Maddie's like, no, like even if you try to take me away, like I'm gonna come back, like I don't want to leave all my friends and everything. But you know, we're just starting to really see this tension build between Maddie and her mom. I mean, obviously there's kind of already been tension, but now it's like we're just seeing how that is evolving now with like Maddie being home and everything. And obviously, yeah, like from Sandra's perspective, all of Maddie's actions probably seem so strange and just like have no idea what is happening with her. So, you know, you kind of have sympathy for her in that, but then obviously you also see Maddie's point of view and like, you know, how important it is for her to like see her ghost friends and help Simon and all this stuff. So it's a very tricky situation happening right now, and I'm really happy that we've been seeing all this, because that was one of the biggest things with this season I was like excited to see, was like just the way Maddie would like adjust to like being back and like how her mom would handle it and all that stuff. And obviously probably the biggest thing that happens with Maddie in this episode, and just one of the biggest things in general in this episode, is that we get to see Maddie talking to her dad, kind of. I mean, you know, she can't see him, but still, like through Xavier, talk to him. So obviously I thought that scene was so well done. Like that was another scene that made me cry. Like, I know I talked about in my first video, like I was like crying so much throughout these first 3 episodes, and that was definitely one of the biggest moments. Like seeing her talk to him was like, it made me so emotional. But yeah, I thought it was really well done the way they did it. Like it was just so mind-boggling to think, like she lost him when she was 9 and now she's like kind of communicating with him, but he looks the same as when like he died, but she has grown up so much. Like he saw her when she was 9 last time and now she's 18, you know, like that's a big jump. And I just love like what they've been doing with Xavier this season, like, which obviously I'll get more to like when I talk about him specifically, but like I just feel like his whole like ability to be able to see the hospital ghosts and kind of be the person that can help Maddie communicate to like her dad, I think has been like a really great plot point for him. So I just thought like him being able to give her that opportunity was like really sweet. And then when they kind of had that little like moment afterwards where Xavier was like, I feel like I shouldn't have been the one like helping that interaction happen, like I'm sorry if I made it weird, and Maddie's like, you didn't make it weird, you made it possible, and they like hug and everything, and I just thought that was a really sweet moment, and I loved seeing that. Then obviously we see Sandra shows up to the hospital and is like, what the heck, Maddie, you said you were gonna be home like an hour ago. So, you know, once again, we're just really seeing, you know, it just keeps escalating, and I keep like, as I was watching it, I kept being like, oh, Maddie, like obviously I understand it's like a difficult situation, but I kept being like, oh, like just get home on time, because I don't want things to get worse, and like, you know, Sandra to really get upset and start like grounding her and all this stuff and making her not be able to like communicate with the ghost and everything. And then we see that she kind of has this little argument with Sandra, because once again, Sandra's just like, I don't know what's happening with you, like, you know, oh yeah, because after Nicole goes to the party, she like shows up at Maddie's house and she's like drunk, and she's like telling Maddie what happened and what she found with the superintendent's office. But then of course Sandra's like, oh, so is that what you're doing now, like with your friends, like going out and drinking and all this stuff? And Maddie's like, no, like, you know, and she just kind of breaks down and just is saying like how hard this has all been for her. She expresses like how she feels about her mom like spying on her, because she figured out that her mom had that app on her phone, whatever. And then she starts going through the cabinets and being like, where's the alcohol, you know, like I can smell it on you, like I'm not stupid. And she like finds it and she's like, see, being spied on doesn't feel good, right? Maddie literally said like, you're the person that hurt me in the boiler room, like that is like why I went away, like was because of your drinking was killing me and everything. And you can really see obviously that Sandra is like deeply, you know, feels very guilty and very sad about this. And obviously that's just been like a running theme literally from the first season, has been, you know, Maddie's issues with like her mom's alcoholism and everything. I do think it's interesting that Maddie said that, because obviously, you know, she can't tell her mom all the ghost stuff, at least quite yet. Like I've said before, I feel like maybe that will happen eventually, but I feel like now is not really the time yet. So I mean, that is if you're taking the ghost part out of it, like that is technically true, that it kind of was her mom that was the one that hurt her in the boiler room and actually kind of caused Maddie to even be in that situation in the ghost world. Because if her mom hadn't come there drunk telling her about the cabin, which really hurt Maddie, that she used her college fund on that, and then, you know, Maddie wouldn't have been in that dark state in the boiler room, and then Janet wouldn't have been able to take her body. So in a way, you know, that is still like a really big part of Maddie's character, and I feel like that's something we almost like, not like forget, because obviously like it is like a pretty big part of it, but like just like with everything else going on with all the supernatural things and everything, like you almost start to forget how much that home life situation like really affects Maddie and like the way she like interacts with the world. But I feel like that was a moment that really like made you remember, like, because that was a lot of what Maddie had to grapple with, like when she still thought she was like dead, was like, you know, now this is just gonna affect my mom, and she's probably gonna, her alcoholism is probably just gonna get even worse. And but then when she knew she could get her body back, it was very much like, well, what's like, I just have to go back to that, and like, you know, all these complicated feelings. So I do think they're doing a really good job of showing all these nuances with Maddie currently. So now talking about Wally. So first of all, I thought it was interesting how there was the scene where he's talking to Mr. Martin and he's kind of saying like, you know, like, what are we gonna do? Like, without Janet, like, you're probably the person, like, we need that is the only one that can, like, figure out all this stuff, whatever. If you don't help us and Janet's gone, like, who's gonna do it? And Mr. Martin says to him, maybe I'm looking at him. And I just thought that was cool because, you know, we do kind of see after that Wally does kind of have, like, a shift, and he starts to, like, feel more obligated to, like, really, like, go after things and try to help Simon get out and everything, like with him finally like going down the hole for Simon and everything. And I just think it's interesting because we've obviously seen a big thing of Wally's character throughout the show has been that he always felt like when he was alive and he was dead, he's always felt like goes along with like what people want him to do, or like he just kind of like almost just like takes orders, but he doesn't like take charge, kind of. Like, you know, when he was in school, when he was alive, he just like played football because his mom wanted him to, and then he would just go along with his friends, what they did and everything, just because it was like the status quo. And then when he was dead, then he also just like, he just followed everything Mr. Martin said, and, you know, he just like didn't really, once again, like take charge. But I feel like now he's starting to like grow into himself more and actually like figure out what he wants to do and what he wants to stand up for and fight for and everything. And yeah, and I did actually, like, before the season came out, I did hear Milo Manheim kind of say in some interviews about that, about how he feels like Wally's starting to like stop letting people kind of like walk all over him and like kind of take charge a little bit. So I think that's a cool thing to see from him. And then I just thought it was funny when he was making a little pros and cons list of going into the hole, and Simon like comes up and he's like, one of the cons was like, Simon might actually die, and he has like a frowny face next to it, and Simon's like, oh, I appreciate the frowny face, man. And then Wally says like, don't flatter yourself, man, no one wants to be stuck in here with you forever. I just like the little banter that happens between Wally and Simon, because obviously, you know, they have a little bit of tension there, but they're also helping each other at the same time, so there's just this funny little dynamic happening currently. But then obviously the biggest thing with Wally in this episode is what happens when he goes down into the hole. So he does go down, and obviously he can't really see much, but like, you know, he goes down like these stairs. It almost looks like some sort of house. And then the same thing that happened to Mr. Martin happens to him, where he gets like pulled by these hands underwater. And then when he comes up, Mr. South, the janitor, could actually see him for a split second, and he was standing on a ladder, so it scared him so bad that he fell over and broke his arm. So obviously that is huge, because that shows us that once again, this thing happened down in that hole where it took someone in and then made it so that for a split second a living person could see them and got hurt. Obviously with Mr. Martin, it actually caused the deaths of the bus crash kids, but for this, thankfully Wally didn't actually kill Mr. South, which for a second there I thought maybe he did, and I was like, oh my god. But because for a second I was like, wait, like, is that how they're gonna get like more information from Mr. South, is like he's actually gonna become a ghost? But thankfully he's not dead, but he did hurt himself. But once again, so showing that he could see him for a split second. So obviously there's something with this thing down below, you know, something is happening with it, and it's able to like thin the veil briefly. So in terms of Simon, obviously we see that, you know, he's just very eager to get out of this place and will literally do anything like to try to get out, which obviously, you know, you can understand. Like, he just worked so hard to get Maddie out, and he finally wants to be able to like be with her again and, you know, be with all his friends, and now he got stuck. So, you know, it is very frustrating. But, you know, something we've seen about Simon from the beginning of the show is that he is just very determined. Like, he will do anything for something he's passionate about, or to get something that he wants. And, you know, he always has like good intentions, but sometimes he can be kind of reckless in that way. And a funny moment I thought is when he's like talking to Maddie in the cafeteria, and so, you know, she's trying to kind of like not talk much to him so she doesn't look crazy, but there's still like this kid kind of looking at her, and Simon like goes up to the kid and is like, oh, stop looking, like, it's not like I haven't seen you do weirder in the bathroom yesterday. I just thought that line was crazy. Then I also thought it was funny when him and Wally have that conversation where they finally decide that Wally's gonna go in the hole, and Simon's like, let's effing go. And then he's like, you effing go, I'll stay and watch. And then I also liked in that scene where then he's like leaving, and they're in a classroom where people are taking a test, and he's like, he's cheating. I just think there's been a lot of like little, I mean, it's always been like this, but especially this season, I feel like there's just been a lot of funny little like one-liners, despite all the dark stuff happening too. Same thing, another little funny thing I liked that he said was when Wally was about to actually go in the hole, and he's like, Simon's like, is it gonna be today? Or, because Wally's kind of like hesitating for a moment. But then on a not as happy note, after that happens with Wally, and, you know, Simon's very like, oh, like, I need to go down in the hole now, like, it shows that it thinned the veil and everything, like, I have to go figure it out myself. And he's just in a very, like, state of just, like, he will do anything to do that, and he's very annoyed at the ghosts when they're trying to, like, stop him and stuff. And, he's like, I'm not like you guys, I don't belong here. And then Quinn comes up and is like, fine, I'll give you back the watch, like, you can go, but, like, I'm not gonna stop you, you know, from trying to get out, but, like, don't ever say that any of us belong here. Like, you know, like, that was a little hurtful of a thing for him to say, like, almost implying that he's, like, above them, and, like, you know, which obviously I know, like, it's not probably exactly what he meant. Like, he was also just saying, like, he literally doesn't, like, he's not a ghost. But, you know, just another thing showing that sometimes Simon does kind of speak and act before he thinks a little bit, and just could maybe work on that. But then obviously the huge thing at the end of this episode is we see he does go down there, and then he sees this, like, church-looking thing down there, and then he sees this creepy figure standing in the distance, and it's really scary. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about Xavier, kind of expanding upon what I was talking about before. So another funny one-liner, once again, I feel like there's been so many this season, is when he, like, finally meets Dave, like, Maddie's dad, and he's like, someone really needs to die in the gift shop, like, you know, because he's, like, standing in the morgue and it's, like, all scary. And once again, I just wanted to expand upon, like, yeah, I just think his little moment with Maddie and was, like, really sweet, and, like, especially obviously after everything that happened, like, I think Xavier has honestly had one of the biggest, like, character arcs, like, in the show. Like, he has changed so much since the beginning. Like, to think back to, like, the way he was portrayed, you know, in season 1 to now is, like, so different. Like, I almost forget it's the same person. Because, you know, like, he was so brooding in the beginning and everything, and, you know, he cheated on Maddie and all this stuff, but now it's, like, he is so different. Like, he's very actually, like, I feel like light and funny now, and he's completely regrets, you know, what he did to Maddie and everything, and, now he really is trying to help her, and he's a really good friend to all of them. Like, he has just changed so much, and I don't know, it's just really cool to see his growth. And I think Spencer McPherson, who plays him, does a really great job with his character, because I mean, that's just something I love about the show in general, is I feel like it really shows, like, very realistic, like, nuanced characters, like, especially having to do with, like, young adults and, like, teenagers, like, because that's how real life is. Like, no one's perfect. No one, especially, like, at that age, like, no one stands behind every action they've done, you know, like, especially in high school, and is, like, the same. Like, I feel like especially in high school, like, I feel like you change so much, like, almost, like, every week you're, like, practically a different person. So I feel like this show just does a really good job with that, of, like, showing that all these people are very, like, gray and change a lot and stuff. So yeah, but I just think it's really nice to see this little new dynamic with him and Maddie, and just how much they care for each other now, but just in a different way. So now talking about Charlie and Yuri. So this was a big part of the episode that I have a lot of thoughts about. So obviously, you know, in the last episode we had kind of got this hint from Yuri that he might have a grandson that goes to Split River. So in this episode, we finally get more, like, information and, like, the backstory about that. So he tells Charlie about how the summer before his senior year, he got this girl named Julie pregnant, and he had said he would meet her at a record store after school one day, like, to talk about it. But before that, he went to the greenhouse, and he had a panic attack about the fact that, you know, he was going to be a dad at only 17 or whatever. And that's what triggered his asthma attack, and he died, and that's why he's here. So that was obviously just a very, like, crazy story, and very shocking and everything. But, you know, we really are starting to see more of Yuri's character and, like, what he went through when he was alive, and his biggest, like, insecurities and hardships and stuff. Like, I mean, we'll get into it more in the next video about episode 4, but, like, you know, we do see that Yuri had a lot of, like, kind of existential, like, issues in his head. Like, he wanted, like, freedom, and, like, he didn't want to get, like, stuck down to one thing, and, which obviously is, like, ironic. Yeah, so obviously the thought of, you know, being a dad, and especially at such a young age, like, was very scary to him. You know, we already know that he had, like, a lot of anxiety and stuff, too, so, you know, we're just really getting more of, like, his story, and I really like it, because I just like that we're getting more specifics about his death, and not as just broad as just like, oh, I had a panic attack. Like, now we actually know what it was about, and, like, more of what was happening in his life at the time. But then Charlie does something in the scene that made me very mad, and I, like, literally couldn't believe, because, I mean, I've talked about it on this channel, like, Charlie has always been one of my favorite characters. Like, I just love him, and I think he's so sweet and, like, funny and stuff, but this is actually one of the first times that Charlie has, like, bothered me and, like, done something that I didn't like, which obviously, once again, like, it's fine, like, they're not perfect, you know, like, there's always gonna be moments where they might kind of bother us or whatever, and that's the whole point of the show, is that they're not perfect and they're teenagers and they're dealing with all this stuff. But, you know, I'm just saying, like, it just kind of bothered me because Charlie just all of a sudden starts getting very insecure and is like, oh, like, you were with all these people when you were alive, and I was only with one person, like, you're so much more, like, experienced than me, and all this stuff, but he just, like, made the whole conversation about, like, himself and, like, his own insecurities, rather than, like, actually listening to Yuri's story and, like, comforting him about it. And then he even kind of makes the comment of, like, but you're not still into girls and boys, right? Like, that was a mistake. And once again, I understand, like, from the context too, like, it is supposed to be nuanced, because he, you know, still kind of deals with, like, internalized homophobia, and, like, he also grew up in a time that was, like, very different, and there weren't, like, as many conversations about, like, bisexuality and stuff like that. So, once again, like, I get it, there's many nuances to it, but it was just a little, like, ooh, like, it was kind of cringy to watch him say that, because I was like, oh, like, even if he was still into girls and guys, like, why is that bad? Like, you know, it was just, like, a little bit of an icky moment. But, you know, Charlie, yeah, he has his issues, obviously. He still has a lot of insecurities and stuff, which, like, you know, we can understand with how badly he was, like, bullied and everything growing up. So it's just interesting to see this dynamic, and yeah, but I just found myself being very frustrated with Charlie in that moment. I was like, bro, this isn't the time. Like, Yuri just told you this, like, really emotional, like, very personal story, and you just, like, made it about yourself, and I was like, yeah, not your finest moment, Charlie. I love you, but just wasn't my favorite. But now on the flip side, a scene that I thought was really sweet and that I really liked of a character was having to do with Rhonda. So obviously, you know, we see Rhonda's, like, talking to Quinn, and Rhonda was kind of trying to help Quinn, like, feel more like themselves, and was even saying, like, oh, you could, like, pick out an outfit, like, that feels more like you, or whatever. But then Quinn is actually like, you know what, I just want to keep my marching band outfit on, like, I like it, I feel comfortable in it. And Rhonda's like, oh yeah, that's fine. She's like, I didn't want to make you feel like I wanted to change you or anything. It's just, like, when you have to understand, like, from when I grew up, like, clothes were, like, a rebellion. Like, clothes were, like, an act of, like, it was a really big deal, obviously, because in the 60s, like, girls had very big expectations of, like, what they should wear and everything. So then we get this little flashback of she sometime, you know, before she died, she had gone to this place in Split River. I don't even know what exactly it is, like, what you would call it, but this place where there's, like, people reading, like, poetry and singing and stuff, very, you know, like, kind of hippie and, like, I don't know the right words to say, but, well, I guess you would say more beatnik, because that's kind of what she turned out to be. But, you know, but when we see her, it's very interesting, because she looks completely different. Like, she's in this, like, very just, like, girly, like, go-go type of, like, outfit, very not, you know, the Rhonda that we know now. And and she meets this girl, Joyce, who is played by Lizzie McAlpine, who obviously has some great songs in School Spirits. Yeah, but you can see that she is wearing, like, the type of outfit that we now know Rhonda to always wear, like, especially the hat. And we see that she kind of talks to her, and she kind of really influences Rhonda and, like, puts some things into perspective for her. Another thing that I thought was funny was, like, the whole, little poem that this one guy was, like, reading that they're showing, like, as she's, like, sitting down. And he's like, burn the Sears catalog and all this stuff, and he's like, I have sandwiches wrapped in rebellion and all this stuff. I just thought it was really funny. And then I also liked this line when Joyce is talking to her. She's like, you know, you should think about, like, traveling abroad. Like, I go to Berkeley, which obviously, so we also see that's why Rhonda wanted to go to Berkeley, was partly because this girl kind of influenced her. But Rhonda's like, I don't know, I don't think my parents would like me traveling abroad or whatever, and Joyce says, what's wrong with a traveling broad? And I just liked that line too. The main thing I liked in this scene was how Joyce really kind of puts in perspective to her, like, because you can tell we're getting more, I mean, we kind of knew this already, but we're getting, like, even more of the vibe of how when Rhonda was alive, she kind of struggled with, like, feeling like no one quite really, like, understood her, and she didn't quite know how to, like, express herself, and she felt kind of, like, emotionally neglected and stuff. Kind of felt like she didn't have the freedom to just, like, do whatever she wanted to do or whatever. But then Joyce says to her this really nice quote that I really like, which was, like, you know, she's like, people will swear, like, the world isn't yours, but it's because if you break free, they might have to ask why they're still stuck. And I just thought that was a really, like, nice quote, and you can see, like, on Rhonda's face, like, that really puts a lot of perspective into her. Oh, and I also just want to say that Liz McAlpine doing the cover of House of the Rising Sun was also very good. After she tells that story, then Rhonda and Quinn, like, take a picture on the camera, and then it comes up and there's nothing on there, obviously, because they're ghosts, so you just see the couch, and Rhonda's like, you know, I think I cut off our heads. I just thought that was, like, a really sweet scene between her and Quinn, and it's interesting to see how they both kind of went through struggles when they were alive of, like, self-identity and stuff, but obviously in very different ways because they were from two very different times and everything, but it's still cool that they can, like, kind of bond over that. So now expanding more upon Quinn specifically, another scene that I really liked in this episode was when Quinn actually has a moment where they sit down with Mr. Martin and they kind of, well, first they make this joke that I thought was funny that was like, they were like, why did they pick a rock, like, where it, like, commemorates the band kids that died? Quinn's like, I understand the scoreboard saying Wally's name, but, like, we didn't die mountain climbing. And something I liked about this scene was that Quinn basically, like, forgives Mr. Martin and says, like, you know, if it happened like you said it did, like, it wasn't your fault, like, that wasn't your intention. And they go on to, like, say to Rhonda, like, I just don't want to be the source of someone's pain. Like, you know, we've all gone through, like, enough, and, you know, even if some people have kind of done some wrong or whatever, like Mr. Martin, like, Quinn still doesn't want to, like, add to that and, like, you know, just make things even worse. So I just thought that was really, like, profound of them, and I thought it was, like, a really sweet moment, especially because, like I've talked about before, like, I do feel like Mr. Martin is such a complicated character. Like, obviously, yes, he has done some not great things, but he also, like, you also do feel kind of bad for him in certain ways, you know? So I just thought it was really nice that Quinn did that for him. So we do get a lot of content of Nicole in this episode. You know, she's starting to try to put more of her plan in motion. Like, when she's talking to Claire, and Claire's like, you have to do all this, whatever, and Nicole's like, I get it, how hard is it to learn basic witch? And then Claire is like, shoot. And I thought it was funny how then when she's, like, about to go up to Olivia and everything, Claire's like, screw you, Nicole, and, like, pretends to be, like, pushing into her and stuff to, like, act like, you know, they don't like each other so Nicole can, like, get in with Olivia and all them more. And then we see, you know, she's kind of talking to them at the lunch table, having a little kind of Mean Girls moment, and then gets invited to Olivia's party that night. which then we see her getting ready for with Claire, and we see her brother Diego comes back into the show in this episode, who obviously I was wondering, like, I knew he would probably come back a little bit at some point, so, you know, when he came up I was like, okay, there he is. And I did think it was really funny when, you know, Diego's like, what's happening, and they like explain the whole thing, and obviously it's like so complicated and crazy, and then Diego's just like, okay, I'm sorry I asked. And then obviously we see Nicole goes to the party, and, you know, it's very crazy, and she's trying to like keep up with everything, but she talks to this kid named Teo, who like comes up to her and is like, oh, like, aren't you the girl from the AV club? But Nicole says to him, like, didn't I see you in the